The atmosphere surrounding the wealthy elite of our beloved city has always been fraught with hidden agendas and unspoken rivalries. But the current situation unfolding within Bill's inner circle has escalated from mere financial maneuvering to a matter of life and death. For weeks, the audience has watched with bated breath as a dark cloud has settled over Bill's estate, a shadow cast entirely by the enigmatic and highly manipulative presence of Hayley. Initially, the prevailing theory among Bill's friends and family was that Hayley was nothing more than a superficial opportunist, a classic gold digger drawn like a moth to the flame of Bill's immense fortune and societal influence. However, as the days have turned into weeks, the narrative has taken a profoundly sinister turn, transforming a tale of greed into a chilling psychological thriller. Kat, a woman known for her razor-sharp intuition and unwavering protective instincts, has found herself at the very epicenter of this terrifying realization. From the moment Hayley integrated herself into Bill's life, Kat felt a persistent, undeniable sense of unease. It was not just the suddenness of the romance or the obvious disparity in their financial standings that triggered Kat's internal alarms. It was something much darker, a coldness in Hayley's eyes that belied her warm, affectionate performance. Kat began to meticulously observe every interaction, every fleeting glance, and every whispered conversation. What she discovered was a pattern of behavior that completely shattered the gold digger hypothesis. Kat's intuition, honed by years of navigating the treacherous waters of high society, told her that Hayley was not merely looking for a comfortable lifestyle or a generous inheritance. Kat began to suspect with a chilling certainty that Hayley was a black widow, a lethal predator who systematically hunts, drains, and ultimately destroys the wealthy men she ensnares. The evidence supporting Kat's horrifying theory began to mount with terrifying speed, presenting itself in the form of Hayley's increasingly erratic and contradictory statements. Kat, possessing a memory like a steel trap, started keeping a mental ledger of Hayley's narratives. One day, Hayley would recount a specific timeline of her past relationships and financial struggles, and the next day, the details would shift subtly but undeniably. These were not the innocent memory lapses of a careless person. They were the calculated, if occasionally flawed, improvisations of a seasoned con artist trying to keep her web of lies intact. Furthermore, Kat noticed a disturbing escalation in the way Hayley interacted with Bill behind closed doors. The gentle affection was rapidly being replaced by relentless, suffocating pressure. Hayley was constantly cornering Bill, urging him to finalize legal documents, restructure his assets, and isolate himself from his long-standing advisors. This psychological siege was designed to break down Bill's defenses, making him entirely dependent on the very woman who was orchestrating his demise. However, the most alarming and heartbreaking catalyst for Kat's covert investigation was the catastrophic decline in Bill's physical health. Bill, a man who had always exuded vitality and strength, was deteriorating before their very eyes at an unprecedented and unnatural rate. His once vibrant complexion had turned a sickly ashen gray. His boundless energy had been replaced by a profound, debilitating lethargy, and his sharp mind was frequently clouded by uncharacteristic confusion. The timing of this mysterious illness was simply too coincidental to ignore. Bill's health had begun to plummet exactly when Hayley solidified her control over his daily routine, managing his meals, his schedule, and his medication. Watching a beloved friend wither away is a torturous experience, but for Kat, the sorrow was entirely eclipsed by a burning, righteous fury. She knew in her bones that this was not a tragic twist of fate or a sudden biological failure. This was a slow, deliberate, and agonizing murder playing out in plain sight. Despite the overwhelming urge to kick down the doors and drag Hayley out of the mansion by her hair, Kat demonstrated a level of strategic restraint that is nothing short of masterful. She understood with crystal clarity that confronting a Black Widow without an airtight, inescapable trap would be a fatal miscalculation. If Kat were to voice her suspicions prematurely, Hayley would immediately play the victim, manipulating Bill's fading affections to cast Kat as a jealous, paranoid saboteur. Worse still, alerting Hayley to the investigation would give the predator ample time to destroy the evidence, cover her tracks, and perhaps accelerate her lethal timeline, finishing Bill off before anyone could intervene. Therefore, Kat made the agonizing but necessary decision to swallow her rage, maintain a facade of oblivious civility, and launch a deeply clandestine investigation. She would not strike until she had the weapon, the motive, and the absolute proof required to lock Hayley away for the rest of her natural life. The turning point in this high-stakes game of cat and mouse came through a critical and highly dangerous alliance with Caroline. Caroline, who had her own growing reservations about the dark atmosphere permeating the household, found herself perfectly positioned to act as Kat's inside operative. The tension during this phase of the operation was palpable, a suffocating blanket of suspense that hung over every mundane household activity. The breakthrough occurred during a seemingly ordinary afternoon tea service. Hayley, maintaining her guise of the devoted caregiver, had prepared a specific cup of tea for Bill. Through a stroke of sheer luck and impeccable timing, Bill was called away or distracted before he could finish the beverage. Recognizing the monumental importance of this fleeting opportunity, Caroline swiftly and silently secured the half-empty teacup, ensuring that not a single drop of the remaining liquid was disturbed. The moment Caroline handed that fragile porcelain cup over to Kat, the atmosphere shifted from suspicion to tangible, terrifying reality. The cup felt heavy in Kat's hands, not with the weight of the ceramic, but with the undeniable weight of the evidence it potentially contained. Kat wasted absolutely no time. Bypassing the standard, easily compromised hospital channels, she transported the liquid sample to a highly secure, independent laboratory capable of conducting the most advanced and comprehensive toxicological screens available. The hours that followed were an absolute agony for Kat. Pacing the floors of her home, she played out every possible scenario in her mind. A part of her, the part that desperately wanted to believe in the fundamental goodness of humanity, hoped the test would come back clean, that Bill was simply suffering from a tragic but natural ailment. But the pragmatic, fiercely protective side of her knew exactly what the machines in that sterile laboratory were going to find. When the encrypted results finally arrived, the confirmation was a physical blow, a shocking revelation that left Kat temporarily breathless. The laboratory report did not just indicate the presence of a mild sedative or an accidental contamination. It detailed the precise chemical signature of a highly sophisticated, slow-acting, and incredibly dangerous poison. This was a toxin specifically chosen for its insidious nature, designed to mimic the symptoms of natural organ failure and evade standard medical detection. The sheer malice required to research, acquire, and systematically administer such a substance drop by drop, day after day, while smiling into the victim's eyes, was a level of psychopathy that chilled Kat to the very marrow of her bones. The gold digger theory was officially dead and buried. Kat was undeniably dealing with a cold-blooded, calculating assassin. Armed with this explosive, indisputable proof, the temptation to immediately call the authorities and have Hayley dragged out in handcuffs was nearly overwhelming. The thought of Bill spending even one more second under the same roof as his would-be murderer made Kat physically ill. Yet her brilliant, tactical mind once again prevailed over her emotional impulses. Kat realized that while she had the murder weapon, she did not yet have the entire conspiracy unraveled. A poison this rare and sophisticated could not simply be purchased at a local pharmacy or ordered casually online. Hayley had to have a source, a supplier, a dark connection to the criminal underbelly that facilitated this assassination attempt. If Kat only took down Hayley, the supplier would vanish into the shadows, free to arm the next Black Widow. Furthermore, Kat needed to know exactly how deep this conspiracy ran to ensure that no one else in Bill's orbit was compromised. Therefore, she chose the hardest path imaginable. She remained silent, allowing the deadly charade to continue just a little longer while she pivoted her investigation from the poison itself to the supply chain. Kat's transition from a concerned friend to a relentless, shadow-dwelling investigator was seamless. She began to employ sophisticated surveillance techniques, tracking Hayley's movements with the precision of a seasoned intelligence officer. She monitored the burner phones, the encrypted messages, and the subtle changes in Hayley's daily routine that signaled an impending resupply. The paranoia and the sheer adrenaline of tailing a murderer through the bustling streets of the city added a layer of intense cinematic suspense to the unfolding drama. Kat observed as Hayley carefully navigated her way to the city's more secluded, unmonitored locations, constantly checking over her shoulder, completely unaware that the very woman she thought she had outsmarted was documenting her every move from the shadows. The climax of this surveillance operation yielded a discovery so shocking that it completely upended Kat's understanding of the entire situation. After hours of tense observation in a dimly lit, secluded area of the city, Kat finally witnessed the highly anticipated drop-off. She watched through the lens of her camera as Hayley approached a shadowy figure to receive the small, deadly package containing the next batch of the lethal toxin. But as the figure stepped momentarily into the ambient light of a nearby street lamp, Kat's heart stopped. The supplier, the crucial link in this murderous chain, was not some faceless, hardened criminal from the dark web. It was Randy. The revelation hit Kat with the force of a freight train. Randy, an acquaintance whose presence in their social circles had always been somewhat ambiguous but never overtly malicious, was actually the architect of the poison supply. The implications of Randy's involvement sent Kat's mind racing in a million different directions. How long had Randy and Hayley been in league with one another? Was Randy the mastermind orchestrating this hit for a cut of the inheritance, or was he merely a pawn, blinded by his own greed and manipulated by Hayley's undeniable dark charisma? HST dynamic between the two of them during the exchange suggested a familiarity and a shared complicity that made Kat's blood boil. They were not just completing a transaction, they were sharing the burden of a premeditated murder. This shocking twist added a massive layer of complexity to Kat's mission. She was no longer just hunting a lone Black Widow. She was dismantling a synchronized, deadly partnership that had infiltrated their lives with terrifying ease. Now, the stage is set for an epic, explosive confrontation that will undoubtedly shake the foundations of the entire community. Kat holds all the cards, the toxicological proof, the photographic evidence of the exchange, and the undeniable knowledge of their identities. The burning question that remains is how Randy and Hayley will possibly attempt to defend themselves when the hammer finally falls. Will they turn on each other like cornered rats, desperately trying to secure immunity by throwing their partner to the wolves? Will they attempt to spin an elaborate, desperate lie claiming the secret packages were merely experimental, unapproved medications intended to help Bill rather than kill him? Or will they realize that they have been thoroughly outmaneuvered and attempt a desperate, violent escape? As the net tightens around them, the stakes have never been higher. Every single second that ticks by is a second where Bill's life hangs precariously in the balance, his body fighting a silent war against the toxins coursing through his veins. Kat's meticulous, agonizingly patient strategy has brought her to the precipice of absolute victory, but the final execution of her plan must be flawless. She must ensure that when she finally exposes the Black Widow and her supplier to the blinding light of justice, there is no shadow left for them to hide in, no legal loophole they can exploit, and no possibility of them ever harming another soul. The storm is about to break over the estate, and when the dust finally settles, the truth will be revealed in all its horrifying glory, proving once and for all that the most dangerous predators are often the ones who smile the brightest.